Hello, this is Chris from the Motion Bench. In today's video, I'm starting the build of the Zero-G Nebula Plus. This is an LDO manufactured kit that I purchased from Fabreeko. We'll begin by taking a look at what's included in the kit, then move on to assembling the frame, since that forms the foundation for the entire machine that I'm building. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer. This video is not sponsored, and I purchased all of the hardware shown here myself at full retail price. Everything you'll see is part of my own independent evaluation. That said, let's get started. What you see here before you is the box for the frame kit itself made by LDO, along with the hardware kit, which includes all the nuts and bolts and threaded heat inserts and everything for the entire frame. And finally, the rubber feet for the printer itself once it's built. I'm going to put these off to the side for now, and we're going to open this box. Now, I will say that the shipping box came a little bit damaged, and this box came a little bit damaged. I purchased this kit from Fabreeko. It's not really on them, it's on shipping, which, you know, if you've dealt with any kind of shipping, they seem to really play soccer with our packages. Inside the box, we'll have our aluminum extrusions, all cut to length, pre-drilled and tapped for building this frame out. As you can see here, I've got a little bit of damage to some of the packing material inside. So if I can make one recommendation to either Fabreeko or LDO, whomever packs the box, would be to kind of pack it a little bit more securely. As you can see here, the box itself was ripped. This is how I took it out of the shipping box. And there's some damage here. Hopefully there's no damage to any of the extrusions or the coated surface of them. But if you can see here on the box, there's some damage here from parts sliding around inside during shipping. They did stuff a little bit of this material in the box, but I just don't think that it's enough. So just be mindful of that when you're ordering. Like I said, so far, just from the top, it doesn't look like any of the pieces are damaged or scratched, which is a good thing. So what I'll go ahead and do is start removing these items out of the box and removing the protective packaging material from them, and inspect each piece as we go, just to ensure that there's no scratches. Spending money on a kit like this, you'd be kind of upset if you received it damaged because of poor packing and shipping. So far, so good with my pieces here. I'm just going to pull them all out of the box, and then I'll sort everything out. Okay, so instead of making you sit here and watch me unbox this for the next several minutes, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this part of the footage. I will say I inspected all of the individual pieces as I took them out of the box, just a quick rough inspection, and everything was undamaged and good to go. There were no scratches on any of the extrusions. There were some light machining marks and things like that, but those can be wiped off with a damp cloth. So on to the rest of the video. Now, I do see some discoloration on one of my extrusions, but that seems to be from post-machining process. I can see looks like somebody dragged a permanent marker up the inside of this particular extrusion once they drilled it out. Not sure what that's all about, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Looks like they did the same with this one, as well as the same with this one. There's just, you can see if you look closely, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this, but inside the frame here, there's some light scratching, and you can see the obvious marks where, somebody went over it with a permanent marker. At the end of the day, it's not going to matter. You're not going to really see the insides of the frame anyway. The only thing that's slightly concerning is these marks on the outside, which they appear to wipe off pretty easily, so I don't think that's going to be an issue either. But it's something to look out for. It is, at the end of the day, it is kind of a minor flaw. And of course, we have our hardware kit here, which is a big Ziploc bag full of a bunch of smaller Ziploc bags. Each baggie is separated by what's inside. Once you get the hardware kit, this is what it looks like out of the bag and on the table. Now again, this will be for the entire frame as well as mounting the enclosure to it. One thing that I forgot to mention is that the frame kit itself and the hardware kit are two independent purchases. The frame kit is $200 for the Nebula 370 Plus version, and then the hardware kit is another $100, which is compatible with both versions. I think the hardware kit is a little pricey for what you get, but it's the convenience that you're paying for of not having to source everything yourself. So we're going to take these 4 uprights and these 4 enclosure uprights, and we're going to start setting up our screws So this step of the build calls for 8 of these M5x6 button head screws and 8 of the M5 T-nuts. So to start threading these in here, you don't need to go a lot, just like maybe a full turn or so. We're going to prepare all these pieces. All right, once you have all of your M5x6 button heads started into the T-nuts, we simply slide them in place on the extrusion. So then I've got these 1, 2, 3 blocks here for squaring things up. Well, you know what? It's actually easier if I just take these like this, slide them into the long extrusion, line them up to the holes, and then just set them down on top of the extrusion that you're mounting to. So the important thing is making sure that these are aligned and flush on the bottom. So that's where these 1, 2, 3 blocks come in handy. I can press all that, and I'm just tightening these down to snug for now. I'm not really tensioning these at all. I'll come back through with a torque screwdriver later on. All right, and when you get it bolted down, it should look like that. Now we'll do a quick visual inspection of all of these extrusions just to make sure that they all look the same when it comes to the cut precision and all that. These kits are made by LDO, so I don't expect to have any issues with the machining and precision in that regard, but it's always good to double check. We'll use an extrusion to push them all up against, and just by looking at it roughly, it looks like everything lines up smoothly. I don't see any overlapping edges. Everything looks to be machined quite well. Next step is getting the next parts that we need. The two 2040 extrusions marked letter C, which you can tell because they have a single set of holes are drilled on each end. You need the A and F uprights that we just built, and then you need one letter I and one letter E extrusion. The letter E extrusion is 538 millimeters for the Nebula 370, and then the letter I is 498 millimeters. And then essentially what we're going to do is assemble the upright. So we have the two sets of holes drilled here and 2 sets of holes drilled here. And then we have another 2 sets back here and 1 set here. So for the Hydra system, this needs to be in the rear and this needs to be in the front. So that is going to look like so. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other side. And essentially, this will be the 2 sides, and then this is the front of the printer. That's the rear of the printer. And this is going to be a very big printer, in case you didn't know that already. Okay, we're going to need 8 of these M5 by 10 button head screws. Don't confuse them with M5 by 8s. The M5 by 8s are for something else. And then we are going to have a blind joint on the left and the right. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these, we're going to slide it in here like so. You should be able to see the head through the holes. I don't know if you can see that, but that's how you'll access this and screw it down. Now we're only going to use 4 of these bolts at this time. I'm just threading them into the ends of the extrusions. All of the ends of these extrusions are tapped where they need to be. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach my screwdriver in through here, and I'm going to start threading down this extrusion. Again, I'm just going just over snug, just enough to keep the parts from moving around. I am not trying to square anything up at this time. We will square everything up later on once we get the entire frame built. But essentially that is what the bottom section of your frame is going to look like. I've got 2 of the bolts screwed in here. This one is the 2020 extrusion, and then I got 1 into the 2040 extrusion here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the other extrusion to the back side of this. That way I can stand this up like this without it wobbling all over the place and smacking me in the face or something like that. Okay, so now that I've got those installed, this is the bottom of the printer. All right. What I'm going to do is take this and stand it upright like so, and then I can take my other extrusion with the 2 bolts and I can install it like that. Hopefully you can see that pretty clearly. This is the end with the M5 by 10 button head screws on it. We're just going to slide that into place. Those holes that are drilled out, we'll reach our screwdriver through those and lightly tighten our frame down. Again, you can use some blocks to help align everything. These 1, 2, 3 blocks come in handy for that. But keep in mind, we are not going for torque right now. We're not worrying about that at this time. We are simply getting everything installed. So lightly torque them down. They don't need to be over tight. You do kind of want to make sure that everything is aligned, just so you don't run into any issues, but you don't need to over tighten them. So that's the one side. We will do the same thing with the top side. So when you're ready to do the other side, and I don't recommend you do it the way I'm about to do it, but I just want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So you have these two holes on the sides here. Then you have these button head screws screwed into here. You're simply going to slide those in like that. Reach your screwdriver in through the hole. Find the button head screw and tighten it down to snug. Then do the same thing with the second one. And there you have it. That is effectively the front side of the printer. So this is the left side of the printer. This down here is the right side of the printer. This is the front left upright, and down here is the front right upright. I can't show the entire thing in frame at this juncture because it is an extremely tall printer. Might as well break out my tape measure here. So from front to back, it is 23 5/8 inches. Okay. And side to side, it is 22 3/4 inches. So just be mindful. Again, look, this is a very large machine. Okay. Don't think otherwise, because you will be sadly mistaken. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this back down like so. I do not have the ideal space to build this printer, but this table that I'm building it on will be where it's sitting when it's finished. Now to do the rear uprights, we need more of the M5x10 button head screws. And then from there, we'll slide it into this corner like so. And we'll start tightening it down. I'm just going to kind of visually align it for now because I need both my hands to hold these up. And then finally, for our final upright, we will do the same exact thing. We're going to slide it in like so, find the hole with our screwdriver, and begin tightening these down. Make sure that you're being mindful of the orientation of your printer. These two sides are the rear. This side is the front. This side down here is the front. So just be mindful of that. So what I'm going to do now is take one of these front cross sections, and we're simply going to slide it into place at the top. As before, in the bottom right corner of the video here, I'm just reaching my screwdriver in there and tightening that down. I'll use my little 1, 2, 3 block here as a guide to make sure that it's roughly aligned where I want it. Now in the bottom left of the video, I will take my screwdriver and begin tightening this bolt down. Using my little 1, 2, 3 block here as an initial alignment tool. Doesn't have to be perfect. We'll fix that all up later. But that's roughly how the front of the printer is going to look. So effectively, this is what the entire printer will look like. I'm taking some phone footage here. This is laying on the side. This is the rear because it has the two holes here and here. So this will be the left side of the printer. That will be the right side of the printer. This is the top front, and then this is the top rear. Please don't mind all the other crap in the room. In the background, it is what it is. So that's the entire frame sitting on the side, and I will next install these crossbars here, and then that will give us an actual rigid frame. So we need 4 more of our M5x10 button head screws. We're going to thread these into the ends of the 560mm extrusions. Okay, so I took one of these 560mm extrusions and we installed it to, this is the left side of the printer here. This down here is the front side. This up here is the rear side. And these just slide in there like so, like everything else. I'm just going to roughly line those up and tighten down the bolts to snug. We'll turn that and align it. And again, just now for a nice little close-up representation, you can take, I've only got one hand, but you can take your 1, 2, 3 blocks like this and just kind of press all the edges together. And that will align it all. We'll do the same thing on the rear side. Heads of the bolts right there. Get down in there, tighten it down. And this is what it should look like once it's tightened down. You can see all of our edges are roughly aligned. We're going to go through later and make sure that this is all square. So the next step is going to be installing the Y gantry bars. Okay, and we have these extrusions here. These are for the Nebula 370. These are the 600 millimeter extrusions. Mindful of the orientation, one end has one hole drilled there, and then the other end has two holes drilled there. When we're installing this Y gantry bar, we want to make sure that this goes to the rear because it has the two holes drilled out. In our case, the rear is at the top. It's going to look like that. So we're going to need 4 M5x6s and then 4 M5 T-nuts. We can take our M5 T-nuts, slide them into the frame here, and finagle them into the Y brace like so, and then snug them down. So that's how it should look. And now I'm going to flip this whole thing over, just like that. And now we can come back through with our screwdriver, and we can tighten these down up here. So we've got those tightened. I'm going to slide in the button head there, kind of use my finger to navigate it, slide my screwdriver in there, catch the hex head, and then snug that down to the frame like so. I'm just pulling this back away from the main frame itself. There's going to be a gap here in between this Y gantry bar and the side of the frame. Then I'm just going to take my M5x6 with the T-nut on it, like so. And I'm going to slide the M5 head of that down into here, like so. Get it lined up with that hole. Try to get my screwdriver head. There we go. And press that up against there. Get it all lined up like that. And then snug it down. This piece here in my hand is the rear Hydra upright subframe. This consists of one of the letter G extrusions, which is the 510 millimeter. I incorrectly stated earlier that this would be for our X gantry. And then we need 2 of the 498 millimeter extrusions. We've got it bolted here and here. We have 4 M5 by 10s threaded into each end of the crossbar. Essentially what we're going to do is lay this on the table underneath. This is the rear of the printer, okay? Both sides are the rear. This subframe needs to be slid in from the back side of the printer. In order to get it on camera, this is about the easiest way that I can do that. And essentially what we're going to do is line it up so that all the heads of those bolts all slide into the aluminum extrusions, and there we have it. This whole thing can slide up where we need it to be, and where we need it to be is that second set of holes down here. Remember I said that have the side with the second holes at the back of the printer? Well, this is why. It's going to be a little tricky to do it this way. I'm only doing it this way so you can kind of see it on camera, because I can't get the other angle. We're basically just going to snug that down like so. This will be easier for you to do if you have the printer standing upright. Again, I'm only doing this for demonstration purposes on the camera. So what I'll do is flip this up on the side here so you can see, again for reference, this second set of holes in this extrusion. If I can get that in the frame, okay. You see these 2 sets of holes. The Hydra subframe needs to align to that second inner hole, and then you'll tighten it down on all 4 sides. So if you have the printer standing upright like so, you should be able to see that this is the rear of the frame itself, and then this is the rear of the Hydra subframe. And then we just tighten those all down, and that's how that looks. Now we can go back through and re-add our cross brace across the bottom of the rear, like that, and then tighten that back down. And essentially, this is our entire frame, completely built out. Nothing is squared up yet, nothing is perfectly aligned yet, and nothing is torqued. Okay, so now that we have the frame assembled, the next step will be squaring and reinforcing the structure. In the next video, we'll go through the process of dialing in the frame geometry and installing the gussets and cross bracing. As always, if you like my content or find it helpful or informal in any way, please consider commenting, liking, and subscribing. It will go a long way to help my channel grow. Thank you for watching.